Back with me, Vaughn Hilliard, Mary McCord, Skye Perryman, and George Conway. All right, I want you to play this out for me two different ways. What happens if there are folks inside DOJ who are willing to carry his water as he dictated today? And what happens if people just leave en masse?
Well, I think first of all, there already have been dozens and dozens who have left. The civil division, as of I think a week ago, was down 30% and is probably down more. There will be people who see opportunity. Of course there will. I mean, it's a big place with a lot of attorneys, and some will say this is my ticket. But there's peril that comes with this, because I think there will be an accounting someday for lawyers who violated their ethical obligations and the rules of professional responsibility. And many of the things that Trump was promising today that his attorneys, not the United States' attorneys, but his attorneys would violate those professional responsibilities. A lot of things that people are having to argue in court right now, because I think they've been told by the administration what to argue, are skating close to the line because they are objectively don't appear to be fact-based. I mean, I understand when you're saying, Elon Musk has no authority, that's what you're being told to say. But again, I'm going to come back to we're not stupid. We can see what's actually happening. And that's why you've seen judges like Judge Alsup yesterday saying, this is a sham. These things are shams. So it is risky to them. If everybody walks out, I am so torn about this. I mean, I spent decades at the department, and if everyone leaves, it really, really will cause lasting damage. But I know if I were there, I would not be able to stay. And I cannot fault for 1 minute those who say, I've been pushing back. Now I'm getting overruled. I've been getting overruled repeatedly. Now I'm being asked to do unethical things. I have to leave.
And we're seeing in court every day. I mean, today the Department of Justice was in court. They couldn't answer basic questions that the judge was asking about what was happening because they're not even getting the information from their clients, from Musk, from these agencies. And so I do think that there is going to be a rubber hits the road moment. The American Bar Association has been very clear, calling on every lawyer to defend the Constitution, to abide by our professional ethics. And Donald Trump has made it clear that he doesn't want to be beholden to anything, and he doesn't want lawyers who are beholden to that.
The man who has sworn to faithfully execute the laws and the Constitution of the United States has declared war on both and declared war on everybody who is standing up for the laws and the Constitution of the United States. That's what's going on here. And, go back to the point about lawyers. They've already told at least one federal judge they don't have enough lawyers to litigate all these cases. They're violating constitutional provisions and statutory provisions at such an incredible rate and losing at such an incredible rate, they can't keep up with it. And people are leaving. And, that's why we saw the person who was arguing the Perkins Coie case that you mentioned was the chief of staff to the Attorney General. The chief of staff of the Attorney General never litigates. This is probably the first time the chief of staff as such to the Attorney General appears in court to litigate and argue a case. The chief of staff is, organizing the Attorney General's schedule. And then they had to send the acting Deputy Attorney General, because nobody else would do it. They couldn't trust anybody else to do it. They threatened to fire the entire public integrity section to get somebody to do it. But Emile Bove had to go up to New York to argue on a simple motion, a simple but corrupt motion to dismiss the case against Mayor Adams. They can't handle this, okay? But Donald Trump doesn't care. He doesn't care whether he destroys the Justice Department. He doesn't care whether he destroys the rule of law or the Constitution. He's just going to keep doing this. And the problem is that, Congress isn't doing its job because they can't, the normal sanction is impeachment and removal for a president who refuses to obey his duties to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States. And federal judges, they can put people in jail if the Department of Justice allows the U.S. Marshal Service to allow it. Even if they did that, you can't have 600 federal judges running the federal government. It is a practical matter. It's too big. One judge with the law clerk. What are you going to do? Run the, who are you going to be in charge of hiring people? It's crazy.
And Vaughn, there is a question. If you are Kash Patel, if you are Pam Bondi, you have somehow gotten through your confirmation hearings. You now have the job and you are being asked to prove something that did not happen, what then do you do?
Correct. And that is, to Georgia's point, the pressure now that Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, and Kash Patel are under are to deliver on the vast conspiracy theories that they and now President Trump have levied and convinced millions of Americans of. It is now incumbent upon them to somehow get the Department of Justice in the position to try to make some sort of a case. And this, in so many ways, takes me back to 2021, when in Maricopa County, Arizona, it was the state officials that ultimately got the ballots, and they hired the cyber ninjas to come and do a whole evaluation of the ballots. And they ended up finding out that they said that Joe Biden ended up getting 360 more votes than the final results actually had. And this is where they have convinced millions of Americans one thing, and now they're in the position to actually prove it, and much in the way with like the conspiracy theories about the federal informants orchestrating the January 6th Capitol attack, or the federal government somehow being behind the pipe bomber, or somehow the conspiracy theories around Jeffrey Epstein. They, for years, have said, put us in the position, we'll release all the documents, we'll prove the conspiracy theories. It's 53 days on, and these conspiracy theories haven't been proven. And I think that is why it's notable that it only took President Trump 1.5 months until he himself went down to the Department of Justice and delivered that very direct message. Effectively, it is time to go and prove our case. Now it's in their hands to do what he wants.